Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So today we're going to do some color matching, and we've got an XF Jaguar that we're going to be doing some color matching on. So we're going to start this video off having a quick look around the paint mixing room. So this is one of our color mixing charts in our color chart. So it's worth familiarizing yourself with the colors on your tinting rack before you go and jump in and just start grabbing anything. You could end up making an absolute mess out of your color, and it definitely does happen every now and then to some people. But yeah, just having a basic understanding of the tinters and what they're going to do to your color is very advantageous, and it's worth spending a few minutes familiarizing or even just reminding yourself of what tinters do what. So you might have even noticed at the start there was like 6 different blues that we've got on that one paint system. So some of them are going to be weaker, some of them are going to be stronger, some might be red tones, some might be green tone blues, and yeah, as I say, that chart will tell you exactly what you need to know about every single color. So obviously I'm using the Standoblue paint system here. This is the Waterbourne system, and the tinters are extra high strength, so it is worth keeping in mind, familiarizing yourself with how strong these tinters are going to be. And if you're unsure, always just start off by putting a little bit less in, and you can check it and then take it from there. It's easy to put some colors in, but you can't take it out once it's in there, obviously. So you also probably noticed I gave you a quick look inside the color box at the start, and yeah, basically they've got color chips for, I won't say all colors or all cars, but most of them these days they've got a color chip for. So what I was just looking at there is the color chips. So they didn't actually have a very good variant. I knew by looking at those color chips that I was going to have to do a little bit of matching on this color here. So a lot of the time, I'd probably give it around 80 to 90% of the time, I don't even have to do any color matching. So if I find a color chip that is really, really good, I will just mix it up and paint it, and I'm very confident. I've actually got a lot more confident in the last couple of months with this paint system that the color chips will replicate. I never used to trust it when I was using Chromax Pro, which actually is the same paint system, just under a different brand, but after giving it another shot this time, I've actually been very impressed with the way that these color chips have been replicating. So as I say, if one of those color chips was perfect, I would have just mixed the color up and painted it, but I could tell that these panels had already been done before. Like the metallic was just wrong from what I know this color to look like. It's called Shadow Grey, and it's actually on the Land Rovers as well. I think it's called Stornoway on the Land Rovers, but yeah, the same manufacturer obviously owns Land Rover and the Jaguars. But yeah, look, none of those color chips were good. The car had been painted before. Someone's done whatever they've done to it, and I knew I was in for a little bit of color matching. Another option you can do is use the spectrophotometer. So I did give you guys a quick look at that at the very start. However, I do actually have another specific video on that if you would like to learn how to use the spectrophotometer. So just a quick rundown of what that is. It's basically just a camera. You take 3 photos of the paint. So obviously shine it up first. You get a bit of polish onto it. So you're going to get a true reading of the color, polish it up, take your 3 photos, plug that camera up to the computer, and then it will scan the database on the computer, and it will even shade the color for you. So previous to moving to Standoblue, I used to do that on every single color, but as I said, nowadays I'm moving more towards the color chips, and they've been working very well for me. But even with this color here, I took the photos and I plugged it up to the computer, and it really didn't give me a good enough percentage. It was like around 89%, that's right. And I just wasn't that confident. I thought, you know what, I'll just go with one of those color chips that you probably saw at the start. I went with the A chip, and I decided, hey, it's not perfect, but it's something that I'll be able to work with. Another thing that I did, and I do this sometimes, is alter the formula myself. So like I'll look at that color chip sometimes and I'll say, hey, that's too yellow, so I'll add a little bit of blue in, or I'll subtract a little bit of the yellow, or whatever it may be that I think it needs to get that color right. So as you saw there, the color is still too yellow, so we're just going to start by getting the tone of the color right first. I'm not going to try and do too much at once. However, sometimes I'll get like 4 or 5 tinters, and I'll just bang, 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 4 or 5 tinters in, and I'll just get it first or second shot. Usually it doesn't take me more than 3 changes, and that's exactly how much it took on this one. So a lot of the time, it'll just be like a very slight alteration from the formula, and I'll say, hey, that's good enough, and we'll just blend it out. So as you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm using my standard pot on my spray gun, and this is exactly why, because I like to drip a little bit of paint over the stick to see if it's changed as much as I want it to. So what we're doing here, put a little bit of that blue in, stir it up, drip a bit of the old paint that's in the pot of the spray gun over the top of the freshly changed color, and then I might say, hey, that's good enough, or I might say, no, you know what, that's going to need a little bit more of that blue or whatever color it may be, and that can possibly save you a bit of stuffing around an extra spray out of that color. So obviously that's just something that you're going to get with a bit of time and experience, but that's the way that the guy who I did my apprenticeship under did it, and it's the way I've always done it, and it's always worked for me. So what you might have noticed me just doing then is just putting a little bit of water, yes, water into the spray gun, because as I did mention at the start, this is a waterborne system. So if I was spraying solvent base, I would have just put a little bit of thinners through the chamber of that gun just to flush it out, just to make sure that the old paint from the previous spray out isn't contaminating the fresh color and going to change it too much. But as I say, you don't want to put too much of that in, just a little bit, just to flush that chamber out. And then once you do put your new paint in, just pull that trigger. As you might have noticed, I was just pulling that trigger just to flush that first little bit of paint through, just to make sure that you're going to get a true reading of this fresh color. So another thing I like to do is use these spray out cards as much as I can. Like I try to get 4 spray outs on one of these cards, so I'll go half and then I'll flip it over and get half on the other side. Otherwise you just go through too many of them, especially these ones here. They're metal ones, and they're a bit more expensive than the cardboard ones, which you just previously just throw out when you're spraying solvent base. So as you can see here, it's better, but it's still not quite there. Now I'm well aware that it's a little bit light, but as I said before, we're going to try and get the tone right, because I've found sometimes just getting the tone right, say like the shade of the color itself, getting that right can actually darken it up itself, because you're adding colors into it, because the base of this color is really a silver, you know, so putting extra colors in it sometimes can dark it. So I thought we'd get that shade right, or a bit closer first, because this was pretty bad. You probably noticed, like, it's not a very good color to start with. So it was actually a good color to do a bit of a color matching exercise with. But yeah, so what we're doing here is a bit of blue pearls. We're putting a bit of blue back in as well, and a little bit of violet too. So this color has got a very dirty browny flip to it as well, sort of like an oxide red flip to it. So you've got to be careful that you don't go too far. Sometimes, especially with these kind of metallics, the pearlescent and metallic colors, you don't even want to go for 100%. You really just want to try and get 95 or above, because if you try to match that face 100%, you go and make the flip even worse. And I reckon if I had kept going with this color, I would have not even been able to make it much better. I might have been able to make it a little bit better, but I started getting to the point where it was like nice and blue on the face, but as I kept putting blue in, it was actually making the flip go a little bit too blue. So you put more blue in, you make it nice and blue on the face, but then you make the flip even worse. So sometimes you just got to get that happy medium, you know, get it quite close, but not perfect. And then you've just got to blend it, because as I say, it was made especially bad by the fact that this had been sprayed before. Another thing that you got to think of is the fact that paint does fade. Sometimes you get a car, especially here in Western Australia, that's like 10 or 15 years old. You'll take like a handle off, or exterior body part off, and then underneath it'll be a totally different color. So you can just tell that sun has actually changed the color. So that's another thing worth keeping in mind. And I've found that even faded paint is usually matchable, like to a reasonable standard. Obviously we're not magicians and we can't do everything perfect, but I've found that usually faded paint is matchable, like whether or not it be that you need to just make it a little bit dirtier, if that makes sense. That's a term us painters use, dirty, like dirty and clean. So like a clean color will be, say, too vibrant, and a dirty color will be sort of like washed out. So the way you wash certain colors out a lot of the time is just by a metallic like this color. If this color was, say, too vibrant and it was very colorful, you would wash it out by putting silver and black in. And vice versa, if you needed to make it cleaner, you would put some colors in, or maybe even a bit of pearl. But again, this is something that has taken me the last, I I don't know, 20 years, and I'm still learning bits here and there. Another thing I'd like to make quick mention to is don't be afraid to ask a friend for some help, and also don't be afraid to tell that same friend that you don't agree with him. You know, sometimes that'll happen. Like, I'll say, hey, have a look at this color, and then he'll say, oh, it needs a bit of blue, and I'll be like, you know what? Thanks for the help, but I disagree. But yeah, look, I've got those certain go-to painters, like the one that I work with now, Dougie. He's always pretty good for a bit of advice, you know. Sometimes he'll just come up with the thing, I'm like, geez, why didn't I think of that? He might say, hey, that needs a little bit of lemon yellow in it. And I'll be like, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, it does need lemon yellow, you know. And same thing with him. Like, sometimes he'll just be sitting there scratching his head and he'll be like, what the hell does this need? And I'll be like, oh, it needs blue. And he'll be like, yeah, it does need blue. But yeah, look, I'm pretty happy with how this one came up here. I know that it's not perfect, but as I said, sometimes you just got to settle for good enough. And I've been doing this for long enough to know that if I was to keep going with this, there's a good chance that, as I mentioned before, you could just end up making it worse and kicking yourself. Like, sometimes you'll do that. You'll have these color cards and you'll put them to the side, like your older ones, and then you'll look back on it and you'll be like, why didn't I paint that? Like, that one that I was at 20 minutes ago is better than what I've got now. Like, yeah, I've gone and made my color worse, basically. So yeah, if you want to hang around for another minute or two, we'll give you guys a look at this one in the spray booth after the colors all blended out, and it's close to invisible. I can see it. Like, I reckon the trained eye can see it, but to the untrained eye, they would be none the wiser. They wouldn't know that there's two slightly different colors, one blended into the other. So as you can see here, that's a pretty good color match. It's the one on the bottom of those two color cards. So it's a bit of an all-rounder, as my boss would say. Sometimes you show him a color and he's like, yeah, it's a little bit yellow here, but then it's blue here, and yellow and blue are opposites, just for reference. So, you know, sometimes you just got to get yourself an all-rounder and blend it, you know. So, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this video came up. Let us know what you think of it. If you would like to see more color matching videos, I could see myself doing a few more in the future. So I do always get some comments saying, hey, do more color matching videos. But yeah, for me, I guess it was just enjoyable because it was something a little bit different. I don't usually do color matching videos. I have done a couple in the past, but yeah, to me, it was just a bit of fun. As I say, something different to do. I reckon the color blended out pretty damn well. Let me know what you think. If you can see the blend and you reckon it was a terrible color match, yeah, let us know. Give us a big thumbs down. Otherwise, give us a thumbs up and let us know if you think the color came up pretty good. If you'd be happy with that on your XF Jaguar, I reckon I would. Yeah, I'd be happy. But if it was my car, I probably would have just painted the quarter panel. However, this car here was it was a car yard job, believe it or not. So, you know, it's all about money for car yards, isn't it? So I can ever so slightly see a bit of a difference. Even just that extra coat of clear has deepened up the gloss level on the door compared to that quarter panel. So look, we'll probably be able to run the buff over the top of that and improve it a little bit. But if it was my car, I would have just cleared the whole side, just painted the whole side for what it's worth. But it is what it is, mate. Don't hate the player, hate the game. I've actually got the footage for the rest of the prep work and paint work on this car. So yeah, hopefully we'll get that up in the next couple of weeks. I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you're more than welcome to go over and check out some of the merchandise we've got. My personal favourite is those spray suits, so they're a good quality Colad branded spray suit with the Gunman logo on it. There's also hats, drink coolers, hoodies and t-shirts, so be sure to go over and check out the link in the description if you are interested. All that aside, I'd just like to say a big thanks for watching, and that is enough to support the channel. But as I say, if you'd like to go the next step, then be sure to check out some of that merchandise. Thanks for watching, and until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out.